Okay, now the classic wobble bass, although again, in the beginning of dubstep, they used a lot of sine waves and played around with sub basses. So we'll take it an octave lower. Maybe another one. It's too low. Okay, but the classic wobble bass was a square wave that they used the filter to wobble with an LFO. So let's set it up with the Meld. New keyboard shortcut in Ableton Live 12.1, Command plus. Let's just bring it in so I can see what's going on the screen. Okay. Sweet. You can see at some point about when it gets to 170, Ableton just loses it. So we're going to keep it right here. Awesome. Command plus and minus. I love those shortcuts. You can always go to the preference as well under display input. It's right here. Zoom, which is great. Okay. First thing, we making a bass sound. It needs to be monophonic, only one note at a time. I'm going to click on the poly, turn it into mono. We'll talk about legato in a second if we need it. We'll leave it legato, that's fine. Nice. Next, in Meld, we have two separate synthesizers. They're exactly the same. It's just two synthesizers in one. So we're going to turn off the second one. We're only going to use the first synthesizer. This synthesizer is great because it has a lot of complex synth engines that we're going to use later, like FM, with only controlling with two macro controls. This is called the macro synthesizer, which is inspired. I don't know why I'm going side note. It's inspired by, I forgot what it's called. The most classic, oh my God, I forget what it's, Plates? Is it Plates? But it comes from modular gear. Is it this one? I think so, yeah. Braids. It's inspired by this. And I had the honor, by the way, of interviewing the main head developer of Meld, Christian Klein, who's Max for Cats, when I did my sponsored video, Ableton sponsored video on Meld. You can check it on my YouTube. So I had a chance to talk a bit behind the scenes here, and it's inspired by modular gear, which is nice to see because modular synths had a resurgence in the last decade, and now we see them in digital form inspiration. Anyway, here we have the first synth engine, which is Basic Shapes. It's basically kind of like a wavetable, including all these classic wave shapes of a synth. So we start with let's look that. We're starting with a sine wave, then we can morph into a triangle, saw, and ending with a square, okay? Nice, and that's what we want. We're gonna turn it down an octave. Maybe another one? Yes. Excellent. Nice. Now, there's an extra macro control here just to change the tone. And in this case, I think it's changing it's a pulse width, if I'm not mistaken. Sounds like a pulse width. Nice, but maybe we'll play with it in a second. But what we want for that classic wobble is to wobble the filter. And when I say wobble, it's essentially taking an LFO and just moving it up and down, or taking the filter and moving it up and down with an LFO. So here we have a filter. We have a bunch of filter types here. We'll see which one we use. Let's first of all map this. Okay, map this to wobble with the LFO. So we have the LFOs right here. We're going to set it up in a second. First, let's map it to our filter. This is how you do it in any synth. I figured today, why not? We'll explore Meld a tiny bit. But if you want to see it, I can show you any synth imaginable, because any synth today, even old school, has oscillator, filter, and LFO. That's all you need to make the classic wobs. We'll later check out more the modern wobs and modern sub, noise bass, all those stuff. Okay, we're gonna take this filter. I'm gonna go to the matrix, and I'm on purpose not clicking on this button. This will show us the matrix in big, but it can be a bit daunting because it looks like a spreadsheet, like Google Sheets. So I'm gonna do it right here. I'm gonna click on the matrix. We have this routing matrix, which this is representing that modular synth where we can connect wires to anything we want. So we want to take the LFO, okay, LFO, and we're actually going to take LFO1 effects. It's the same thing. I'll show you. You just have extra shapes, which are super cool. So LFO1 effects, which is the same. It's LFO1, but with extra shapes. We also have LFO2, which is a basic LFO. Let's do LFO1 effects, and we want to map it to the filter cutoff, filter frequency. So we're going to click on that. We're going to see it highlighting in the last line, and now we can decide how much we want to wobble it. Okay, so let's do something like this. Nice. And let's turn down the filter so our starting point is more filtered. Nice. Now, we have that classic wub. Let me know if you want it higher or lower in volume, okay? I'm going to go... Oh,
quick question.
Yes.
So you don't have to go through the details of it. In terms of like the matrix mapping and setting this up, like if I wanted to do that through like the push 3 and not through the computer, that's possible. I can just,
Yes.
Okay, I'll look it up. I'll figure it out.
That's a great point, by the way. If anyone have push 2 or push 3, because the push is known as Ableton's, I have it right here next to me, but the push is known as Ableton's controller. You can play instruments, you can control effects, but it's also a synthesizer, because as soon as you load the meld or wavetable or operator, you get full hands-on control. Yes, it's not completely hands-on like a dedicated synthesizer, but you can still access everything, including modulation, mapping. That's what we're doing now, mapping modulation. So yes, you have to go inside meld, and then you'll see at the end, you'll see the matrix. So you have a dedicated tab.
Yeah, okay, I got it. Cool.
It's amazing. Guys, if you're using the push, it can be very immersive, like kind of the screen will go to sleep because you're there and you design a sound. Super fun. Okay, nice. So now we have this LFO.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please.
When you're doing that, are you able to control multiple controls at the same time because your hands are engaged?
Yes, you can also test out different things, because the idea with modulation a lot of times, unless we're talking about crazy thing, modulation super fast, is that, that's my tip, when you want to create a sound, start moving stuff and start moving them like this, or move it slowly up and see if you like the movement. Right, and then I can emulate that movement. If it's slowing going up and just staying up, that's an envelope. If it's wobbling up and down in all sorts of ways, that's an LFO. That's the two main modulators we have. So with the push, you can get a chance kind of more hands-on to move stuff very quickly. But again, it's not a full-on synthesizer. If you want to really lose yourself inside an instrument when it comes to sound design, unlike, let's say, guitar, Aaron had a guitar. Guitar, you can also do it, but you need a pedal board, right? The main sound design with the guitar itself is how you play it. But with a synthesizer, of course, it's also how you play the keys, if it even have keys, but it's also the actual moving and changing like a pedal board. So I would highly recommend, if you are looking to get into synthesis, and Nisse, I think you have the Moog, no? Or the Mini Moog. To get a synthesizer, plug in headphones, forget the computer. Just go there, make some sounds, lose yourself there. But the push can somehow get you there as well, like that, okay? But still, you can do sound design with keyboard and mouse. It's nice to have something to click on a note quickly, or just have a MIDI clip. So I can always start and stop it quickly, okay? Let's go back here. So now we have the LFO1 mapped to the filter frequency. I'm going to go to the LFOs tab so we can start adjusting what we want here. First thing, we want to synchronize our LFO to our rhythm, to our BPM. So now it's wobbling eighth notes. And we can, of course, change it. That's the classic thing that they used to do in early dubstep, where, I mean, they still do it today, where, you know, I can... Right? There is just, and maybe here we'll slow it down. That's the classic. That's what make dubstep dubstep. Where is the quarter note? Oh my God. Am I missing the quarter note? That's so weird. Here, I want it here. Oh, I guess that's the one that I'm on. Here, that's the right? So we get this kind of rhythmic change. I think our drums are too loud right now, but if I bring back the drum, let's turn up, or let's turn down our drums. I'm going to open up the group, and I'm going to turn down the drums, maybe -6. Okay, classic. Nice. Now, and of course, you can still use these type of sounds. Maybe we layer them with some extra stuff. But later on, in the 2000s, we also were introduced to FM wobbling, okay? And let's do that. So we can leave this here. I did make you this wobble bass preset where, let me move it here. And let's, we can automate this. I will keep it on quarter note here. What is this? 6 is triplets. 8th note, maybe some triplets. Go back to like half. Sweet. Here we have a dedicated effect that will turn it into a mid bass, because I'll show you we're going to layer it with a sub bass. But I'm going to turn it off. So you just have a preset. You have a bunch of variations here for the sound. Whoops. Oh, we'll have to bring that maybe. That needs to be octave higher. That's too heavy. Let's try this. Okay, it's the same sound, just different macros. You'll see as we set it up with the FM, a small change gives you a whole different sound, and you can use it in different sections of your drop. But when I turn this on, it will turn it into, it's just filters and stuff, it will turn it into a mid bass. Let's turn it up. Yeah, we'd have to, it's too much. Okay, and it will make more sense when we layer it with a sub bass. Okay, so you have this, you can use it with already everything in it, all the spectrum, or turn it into a mid bass and layer it with a different sub bass, which we'll see. Okay, I just want to go back here to what we just did. Okay, so I need more volume out of this. I'm just going to turn it up here. Nice. And let's change. Wait, we had something in the chat. Hiko, thank you. Thank you, Hiko. You got. Oh, I gave you a bunch of presets here. We'll also hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about wrist bass for our breakdowns and stuff. But let's change the engine right down from basic shapes to harmonic FM. And if you're in CROM, I just want to, because everyone, if I remember, most of you have CROM or Vital, they have two oscillators, and one of the oscillator can function as the FM for the other oscillator, as the frequency modulator. And that's a very popular kind of metallic type of sound. But in Meld, we have it built in. So this harmonic FM have this two oscillators already built in, and one of them is modulating, frequency modulating it to get that sound. Okay, so let me actually reset Meld so we can do it from scratch. And just so you can see, it can be as powerful as those other synths, it's just in a different form. And it's just kind of a nice, and I would always recommend exploring different synthesizers because you'll get to the same, it will just reinforce how to synthesize, because all synthesizers are the same, but maybe here the oscillator has this and here the filter, but it's still the same oscillator, same filter. So it will just reinforce sound design for you. And that's why I would recommend using different synths, but don't go too crazy. Maybe choose like 3 different synths and explore them. And then when you get bored, you can, of course, explore other synths. But I love synths so much. Everyone, every synth has its own kind of quirks and stuff. Sweet. So back here, let's solo this. Let's turn it up a tiny bit. Maybe octave lower. Okay. Now let's go to the harmonic FM engine. Again, it has this kind of two oscillators in one. One is the audio ball oscillator, and one is the frequency modulator that move the pitch so fast that it changes the tone that can create this kind of metallic vibe. Let's bring up the ratio. Okay, so we're gonna wobble this and maybe also the filter. Let's take it another octave lower. Here we go. Okay, so again, I'm gonna go to the matrix. In this case, I'm gonna click on oscillator 1, macro 1, and you'll see it appear in the last row. If I click on the 2, you see it changes. If I click on the filter, now it's a filter. So oscillator macro 1, let's put it on LFO 1 effects. Sweet, let's go to the LFOs, synchronize them. And now we have a different form of wobbling, which is this FM. Let's add a bit more, maybe here drive, some distortion. And let me slow it down maybe. Nice, and now if we change the ratio, it will change the tone. And it's endless. Maybe we'll incorporate another filter. We have this filter, which is mixed with distortion. Let's turn this down. Let's go to our matrix. And I'm gonna also, now you see, because we added modulation to this oscillator macro 1, it stayed in the matrix. And now we have another row. I click on the filter and it shows us the filter. Okay, maybe we'll go to the LFO, slow it down even more. Okay, super awesome stuff. You can use both the square wave wobbling and then add some effects, and the FM wobbling, which is more popular in these days. A lot of the sounds in the deep dubstep today and the 140 dubstep are based on this FM concept. Okay. By the way, you might heard and you might hear a lot of times, do not add reverb on bass. But in this style, we can add reverb on bass, maybe not on the full bass spectrum. So that means that I might add some reverb, and I might do some things. Maybe I'll automate the reverb to be dynamic. So, right, something like this. And again, we need an LFO for this, but we can do it with an envelope follower. Let's map this here. Gain. Okay. Or we can take this reverb and group it, Command G, open up the chain list, create a chain. This is our dry, which is our dry reverb. And this reverb, we're gonna EQ the lows so we don't affect our bass frequencies. So there's some truth to it. Okay, we're only gonna reverb the mid-high frequencies. But reverb comes a long way with this style because it's so spacious, it's so deep, and it needs that space, that reverb, so you can reverb the bass. We don't really reverb in the bass but you can. Okay, dynamic reverb or parallel reverb with EQ. Okay.
One question,
please.
You leave it on poly, or you because the harmony?
Thank you. Yes. So usually in this case it doesn't matter because I'm not going to play other notes with it. But yes, technically it should be mono. Okay, it should be mono. And just so you don't, if you do play two notes at a time, it only plays one of them. Okay, so but usually I won't overlap them. But if you do want to overlap, I would recommend also going under settings. This you will find in any synthesizer, and add some glide as well if you want to glide between the notes. And maybe we'll go to the LFO and we're gonna